Welcome to Fix It Home Improvement, covering projects that every homeowner should know and great products for home and garden.
Hi, I'm JC, and this is where we share weekly home improvement tips. I'm here with my co-host, Cindy.
Hello, JC.
Hi, Cindy. This week we're going to be talking about garage organization, and we'd like to thank Hans Gruber for liking and sharing the podcast. He likes the show. About 10% of all households rent storage space for items they can't fit into their house, and the most common size they have to rent is 10 foot by 10 foot. About 1 in 4 homeowners have so much stuff in the garage they can't park a car in it, and a third of the homeowners that were surveyed about the condition of their garage say they keep the door closed because they don't want their neighbors to see how much stuff is in their garage. You want to start with some things you shouldn't store in the garage?
No.
So, if you're in an area with high heat or freezing winters, you shouldn't store canned food in the garage. The FDA says you should be storing canned food below 70 degrees. If it gets 95 degrees or hotter, it can cause the food to spoil. Or if the cans freeze, the liquid expands and it can cause the cans to bulge, and it can create microscopic holes big enough for bacteria to get into. And then when the food thaws, it can be unsafe to eat. It's wild, isn't it?
Uh-huh.
You know, Napoleon inspired the invention of the first canned food, so he offered a 12,000 franc prize to anyone who could find a way to prevent military food from spoiling. So a chef in 1795 came up with a way to pack meat into glass bottles. He put a cork stopper into it, and then by boiling it, it sterilized the meat and it prevented spoilage. Paint shouldn't be stored in a garage with high temperatures or be allowed to freeze. Many companies recommend storing paint in an area that's 60 to 80 degrees Fahrenheit. Valspar says only store in moderate conditions, never allow it to freeze. A couple of Benjamin Moore cans I looked at recommend 41 to 95 degrees Fahrenheit.
41.
Right. Glidden Paint says do not allow paint to freeze. And once latex paint freezes, it separates and gets clumpy. It's pretty wild looking. And metal cans, if you store them on concrete floors like in your garage, it can cause them to rust. You know what's interesting about some oil-based paints?
What?
Is if they get too hot, the vapors can become flammable.
If you have old paint in your garage,
Yeah.
how are you supposed to get rid of it?
So if you have latex paint, they want you to allow it to dry out first before you throw it in the regular garbage.
So what do you do?
You can put cat litter into it or pour it into like a big tray, like a disposable tray, and pour it onto cat litter. Allow it to dry, then you can just throw it out. There's also a product called Cobzorb. So it's C-O-B, capital Z-O-R-B. It's made out of corn, and that will help you dry out latex paint so you can put it in the regular garbage. If you have an oil-based paint, you're really supposed to recycle it. You can go online to earth911.com, so it's E-A-R-T-H, the numbers 911.com. Put in your zip code, and they'll let you know the closest place where you can recycle it. You don't want to store cordless tool batteries in the garage. You want temperatures below 80 degrees Fahrenheit for most lithium-ion batteries, and in a dry area, you want low moisture. Temperatures over 100 degrees Fahrenheit can damage lithium-ion. The NiCad batteries actually have a little wider range, but in general, high heat kills cordless tool batteries. You don't want to store rags that you've used with solvents, linseed oil, turpentine, or other oil-based products rolled up in the garage. As the chemicals evaporate, they actually can generate enough heat that they'll spontaneously combust. So you want to store them either in buckets filled with water, or you can take them outside, open them up fully, allow them to dry first, and then you can store them in the garage. You don't want to store pet food in opened bags in the garage. It can attract pests like mice, rats, and raccoons, and bugs. Vets are recommending that you store dry pet food in the original bag and put the bag in an airtight container and keep the temperatures below 80 degrees Fahrenheit. And there's a variety of pet storage bins and locking totes you can use, but an easy way to store big bags of like dog food is in a 5-gallon bucket with an airtight locking lid. A top-rated lid is from Gamma Seal. It's Gammasel. So it has 2 parts. One part is this threaded ring with an airtight gasket that you snap onto the top of the bucket. And this is going to fit onto 3.5, 5, or 7-gallon buckets. And then there's a threaded lid. And so this is very easy to twist tight so you can close it up or just spin it off. And it has an airtight gasket around the edge of it. And if you're storing pet food or even human food, you can get food-grade 5-gallon buckets. They're made out of high-density polypropylene, and it's specifically for storing food long-term, so there's no dyes or recycled material that could potentially be harmful. And just because you see 5-gallon buckets that are marked HDPE with the number 2 on it and that recycling symbol, it doesn't necessarily mean it's food safe. You should look for buckets that are clearly marked food safe. You know, the 5-gallon plastic buckets weren't invented until the 1960s for like paint, joint compound, and food supplies. And the earliest carving showing buckets goes back to about 3200 BC in ancient Egypt. Roman firefighters used the bucket brigade to fight fires, and their buckets were made out of rope, and then they sealed them with pitch. You don't want to store propane tanks for your grills in the garage. If the garage gets too hot, the pressure relief valve can release propane, and it can cause a fire from a spark or static electricity even. You want to store your propane tanks at least 10 feet away from your home in a well-ventilated area. Keep the tank upright. That way the relief valve is going to function properly. And with the propane tanks, you don't have to worry about cold weather. It's not a problem. You want to keep it off the ground, though, to prevent the tank from corroding. You can use a wood block or landscape blocks. There's also tank holders. There's one called Mr. Heater Tank Foot or Easy Go Tank Holder. It's EZGO Tank Holder, or you can just use a plastic milk crate. You should have a fire alarm in your garage in case of a fire and a fire extinguisher. Most dry chemical fire extinguishers can be stored in temperatures from -40 to 120 degrees Fahrenheit. So the UL tests the chemicals to work to at least 120 degrees Fahrenheit. They're also going to work higher than that, but they don't work as long above 120 degrees. And over 120 degrees, it can shorten the life of the seals. Temperatures below -40 can crack the valve or the hose. And a tank is required to withstand temperatures of up to 175 degrees Fahrenheit without rupturing. So the best size in a garage is usually 5 to 10 pounds. 10 pounds, it's going to last longer. And when you look at your fire extinguishers, a type A is for wood, paper, or cloth fires. Type B is for flammable liquids, and a type C is for electrical fires. When you see a rating like 3A-40BC, it's an ABC fire extinguisher, so it's going to put out paper, flammable liquids, or electrical fires. The numbers mean how long or how big of a fire it will put out. So a 1A, for example, is going to put out an 8-foot by 8-foot wood panel. A 2A is a 10-foot by 10-foot wood panel. A 3A is 12 by 12. A 4A, 14 by 14. So the bigger the number, the more chemical or the bigger fire it'll put out. For the B rating, they take a pan filled with flammable liquid. So a 1B will do a pan that's 2.5 square feet, a 2B 5 square feet, a 5B 12.5, and the bigger the number, the bigger the pan.
How long do fire extinguishers last?
So most pros are saying it should last about 10 years in your garage, but you should be checking the gauge once a month so that you're making sure that the pressure is good in the tank. Some of the top-rated fire extinguishers, Kidde, Kidde, First Alert, and Amerex, Amerex. So you want to talk about some systems to organize the stuff in your garage?
Okay.
If you have long-handled tools, the slat wall systems or slot wall systems do a nice job. If you go to like a home center or a lumber yard, you can get wood panels. They're going to have long horizontal slots. You put hooks in this, and you can hang rakes, shovels, ladders, or bikes. Some of these systems, you can put a cabinet into the wall, and they can come in plastic or metal if you want to hang heavier items, and they're modular. So you can group multiple panels together, or you can stagger them. And if you go with the wood, it's usually engineered wood that can be painted, or it can have a laminate face. The wood is generally going to come 4 foot by 8 foot or 2 foot by 4 foot. If you get into the heavier loads with the plastic or metal systems, they're generally thinner, smaller, rectangular panels. So they might be 3 feet by 8 foot or just 6 inches by 48 inches. And a system like this allows you to easily organize and reorganize the items you're storing just by sliding or adjusting the hooks in these slots. You should also check the weight limits and see what accessories are available. You can get hooks, basket, bike hooks. There's ladder hooks. You can put a shelf in the slots in the groove. They also have magnetic bars for like screwdrivers. So it's very versatile. Some top-rated slat wall systems, Ultimate Storage. It's ULTI-MATE Storage. Gladiator Garage Works. Pro Slat. Handy Wall, PVC slat wall. So Handy is HANDI. And then there's Tap Mount, TAP, and it's by Knapp and Vogt. And they spell it KNAP, and Vogt is VOGT. There's a bar system from Rubbermaid called Fast Track, and this is a horizontal bar that mounts onto the wall, and it has a variety of hooks and baskets that clip onto the bar for storing long-handled tools, hose, extension cords, and other yard equipment, and the accessories can be moved and repositioned. You can get pegboard for your walls, and it comes in plastic, wood, or metal for heavy items, and the three most common size pegboard, if you're getting wood, is going to be 1/8 inch, 3/16, and 1/4 inch. And the 1/4 inch is going to be stronger and more durable than the thinner ones. And you can pick up pegboard at home centers or lumber yards. The most common size is going to be 4 foot by 8 foot, 4 foot by 4, or 2 foot by 4 foot. And there's going to be a couple different size holes in the pegboard. 1/4 inch is going to be the most versatile. You can put in 1/4 inch and 1/8 inch hooks. And you can get a variety of hooks. Thin shelves that go into the pegboard for items like safety glasses, cans of lubricant or spray paint. There's all types of holders for drills, screwdrivers, hammers, pliers, tool trays, and bins. And you can also get plastic clips that hold the J-hooks in place, so when you're taking an item off the hook, it doesn't pull the hook off with it. For flat wood, plastic, or metal pegboard, you're going to have to make some type of framework to hold the panels away from the wall. That way you can insert your hooks. And you're going to need about 1/2 inch or so you can use 1x2s or 1x3s. I'd space them about 16 inches apart. You're going to mark the studs on the wall, and then depending on how you're laying your pegboard, you can either run your framework vertically or horizontally. If you've got a thin rectangular piece that you're laying horizontally, it's much easier if you take your framing and you run it over the studs horizontally. Wood pegboard can be primed and painted to add color and durability to the wood, and some of the plastic and metal pegboard has folded edges or standoffs, and that way it's going to give you the space. You don't have to create a framework. Some of the metal pegboard comes in thin rectangular strips so you can mount it horizontally, and that way it's really easy to hang like long-handled tools. A top-rated metal pegboard system comes from Wall Control. It's WALL, and this has a combination of holes and slots, so you can put standard 1/4 inch pegboard hooks in it, and they have these slots with their special hooks for all their accessories. This is 10 times stronger than wood, so great for heavy tools. And they have specialized tool holders, baskets, shelves. They have tilt bins for small parts like nuts and bolts. They have a paper towel holder and spray can holders. And it has a lifetime warranty. Freestanding shelving units are a fast way to organize stuff laying around your garage. And most of the units you're going to find at home centers are either going to be plastic or metal. I would check the spacing between the shelves and match what you're going to be storing. Units with adjustable shelves are going to give you more options, and it's really easy to rearrange this in the future. You have wood shelves or laminate shelves. Some aren't waterproof, so I would check the recommendations of what you can store on them. The wire shelves are very popular, but if you have a lot of small items, it may not be the best choice, or you might want to just add thin wood in certain areas. A short shelving unit that has narrow shelves around 12 inches is good underneath pegboard. And then make sure you're comparing the weight limits. A couple of the plastic shelving units I looked at were rated at 150 pounds a shelf, or 600 pounds total. A shelving unit with wire racks I looked at was 600 pounds a shelf. And a metal frame unit with particle board had a total weight limit of 2,000 pounds. Another metal unit with heavy metal wire shelves are rated at 2,000 pounds a shelf, 8,000 pounds total.
Wow.
DeWalt has an interesting industrial storage rack system, so they have two different weight limits. One is 4,500 pound total, the other one is 10,000 pound total weight limit. And they have wire metal grid shelving with laminate over the top of it so you can store small items. If you take two of these racks and separate it with a wire shelf, you can actually create a workbench in between the shelving.
Interesting.
Some top-rated shelving units: Gladiator, Muscle Rack, Seville, and Edsel, EDSAL. And a tip, you should always secure a freestanding shelving unit to the wall to prevent it from tipping over if a kid were to ever climb on it.
Right.
You can also create your own shelving by getting vertical standards, screwing it into wall studs, take some shelf brackets, put it into the standards, and then put wood on top of it.
So you can really customize the shelving then by the spacing and the length of the shelf or bracket.
Right. There are also horizontal hang tracks that you clip vertical standards into, and then the shelf brackets attach into those. So the only thing you have to install is that one horizontal bar at the top, and then everything else is clipping into each other.
Exciting.
Overhead storage racks are a great way to organize lightweight items. The racks are going to screw into the joists in the ceiling and give you shelving above your car. So one system I looked at from FlexiMounts adjusts from 22 to 40 inches from the ceiling, and this had a 550-pound weight limit. And some of these shelving units have hooks and other accessories, so now you can hang bikes or extension cords or tools off this also. Make sure you're comparing the weight limits. When I was looking at some of these systems, I saw between 200 and 600 pounds. Some common sizes are 4 foot by 4 foot, 4 foot by 6 foot, and 4 foot by 8 foot. And the only disadvantage with the overhead storage racks is you're going to need a ladder most likely to load and unload it.
Or stilts. What are some top-rated companies?
Tough Racks, it's Tuffrax. Monster Racks, so it's Monster and then Rax. High Loft, Hyloft. New Age, Safe Racks, and FlexiMounts. And it's FlexImounts. If you only have a couple of brooms or long-handled tools you want to get up off the floor, you can get hooks and just screw them into the studs of your walls, or you can run a 2x6 length of wood horizontally across a few studs, attach it, and then you can put hooks into that 2x6. For bikes, there are tubular steel hooks that you can hang either from the wall or the ceiling, and you want to make sure that you're screwing these into studs or joists. And these are also good for ladders. You can get hooks that come out 2 inches, 3 inches, 5 inches, or 7 inches from the wall, so you can really accommodate a lot of different things. Totes work really well for organizing, and totes that are square or rectangular or going
what
to
other shape would there be?
Oval, heart-shaped. So you can stack multiple totes, and you want a lid that allows for stacking. You can stack multiple totes on top of each other and then run pegboard above it, or you can match the size of the tote to shelving and stack up a wall and then stack on that top shelf all the way up to a ceiling. Totes are also good for overhead storage racks. You want really good fitting lids that are mouse-proof and bug-proof, wide usable handles.
Clear totes are good because you can see what's in them.
Right. Smart.
Well, I mean, to stay organized, it's nice to know what's in the tote so you don't have to open them all the time. Or I guess you could mark it with painter's tape.
Yeah, or colored totes. You could have
for different seasons.
Right. I like it. Some top-rated totes: Sterilite, Sterilite, Iris, Iris, Rubbermaid, and HDX. And it's just the letters H, D, and X. 5-gallon buckets make good storage for tools or grouping tools in your garage. You can have one bucket for your plumbing stuff, one for paint, one for drywall tools. If you're in a cold climate and you store calcium chloride, the problem with calcium chloride, once you open the bags, they start to draw the moisture out of the air.
Right.
So they really need to be in an airtight bucket. So you can get a 5-gallon bucket, drop your bag in there, and then use one of those gamma seals on top. It's going to make it airtight. You can use 5-gallon buckets for your pet food, if you're using food-safe buckets. If you do concrete work or tuck pointing, 5-gallon buckets are handy for your tools, and then you can mix small batches of the material. Then you can clean them out and reuse them. If you're carrying heavy tools or construction material, you can replace that thin, small plastic handle with an ergonomic handle, and then it's going to make it much more comfortable to lift and carry. There's a product called Snappy Grip. It's Snappy. You cut off that thin handle that originally comes with the 5-gallon bucket. You snap this over the metal bail, and it makes it much more comfortable to carry. There's also something called the Bucket Wrangler. So this is an ergonomic grip with 2 hooks that you can grab onto the metal bail, and it makes it much more comfortable to lift heavy buckets. But that handle can be removed and used on other buckets, or you can grip 2 buckets at a time with this handle.
No way.
If you love 5-gallon buckets for tools and storage, you can get the Monkey Bars bucket rack. So they have a 9-bucket rack that mounts to the wall and holds the buckets at an angle for easy access. It is a 400-pound weight limit.
Wow.
It's like the coolest thing ever.
Do you have anything else to add?
I would attach freestanding shelving to studs to prevent a tip over in case kids try to climb it or you really stack stuff poorly. Keep chemicals up high and out of the reach of kids and pets. Antifreeze is highly toxic and it has a sweet smell that attracts pets. Some types of antifreeze, 1 tablespoon can kill a cat.
Wow.
Pretty wild. Use a variety of storage systems for the best use of your space. I would lay out all the stuff first and then think about the types of hooks you can get. Totes, 5-gallon buckets, shelving, overhead storage. Get a smoke detector and a fire extinguisher in the garage. The U.S. Fire Administration says that there are about 6,000 fires a year in garages.
Let's wrap this up.
You can subscribe to our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, the Spotify mobile app, the Google Play Music app, iHeartRadio, and CastBox.
If you enjoyed it, please leave us a review.
You can check out our home improvement videos on our YouTube channel, Fix It Home Improvement.
And you can subscribe to that as well.
You can download our books, Home Improvement Solutions, What Every Homeowner Should Know, on Amazon.
If you enjoyed it, please leave us a 5-star rating and review.
You can email us at fixitpodcast@gmail.com. You can follow Cindy on Twitter @FixItCohost.
Thank you for listening.
Talk to you next week.